I have been asking moms, what is something that you have had to overcome in motherhood? If it's something that you didn't expect, something maybe you did expect, and how do you overcome that? Because there's lots of times in life that life takes a turn that you don't expect, or life just gets hard. So I just want to encourage you that things are good and they can be good. You just got to look for it. This is my friend Amy, and I just want you to be able to hear her story about what is something that you've had to overcome and how did you get there?
Well, I feel like all of motherhood is just about overcoming. So I might have to give more than one answer.
That's great.
So one of the first things that came to mind is just that when you are a parent, well, before you have kids, you kind of imagine that having kids is going to be training someone else to have good character. But then I think as I have become a parent, I've realized that having kids is training me to have good character. You know, kids are kids, but it's like my response to them that's really been the most surprising thing to me, where I'm like, wow, that was a really big response. And this is just a kid, and why am I acting this way? Why am I acting more childish than they are? So I think that's been the biggest piece, is like the unexpected, like massive amounts of growth that I've had to have internally, and giving myself grace for that, you know, like understanding that's part of the process. And I'm so grateful for my kids. Like, people ask me, should I have kids? You know, I've had several people lately who've talked to me about, should I have kids? And I'm like, I mean, my answer is yes, I have kids and it's the best thing ever. But it's also the most challenging thing ever.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think me as a person would be nowhere near as much character development and as much growth as I've had because of kids.
Yeah. I think that's a common comment. Like, I've heard people even ask me, like, you must have so much patience, or like, you must have had so much patience to be able to have so many. And I'm like, no, you get it as you go.
Right, it's constant. It's a constant learning thing. And you know, and my kids now are older, and it's still like that thing where you're constantly finding new ways that you have to learn to love them in situations that you didn't know you were going to have to learn to love somebody in a situation where they're doing this or doing that, and you're learning to have patience and love people the way Jesus loves people is unconditional.
Yeah.
And so like I want to be like that. I want to love people unconditionally, and it's very easy as parents to get into a situation where it's like, I will treat you nice and I will love you when you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so that's the constant thing of like learning to love people and be an example to them as they are.
Yeah. So I like that you said you have to have grace for yourself too.
Yeah.
Because that was something, I think that's a new lesson for me in this, because I have had to remind myself, like, oh, they don't know how to do that because nobody's taught them before.
Right.
But then that's the same with us as well. Mm-hmm. Like, totally. we haven't had to go through this situation before. So instead of knocking ourselves down and having that negative self-talk, like, just have the grace for yourself. You're learning through this whole situation.
Right. You're new to momming. They're new to humaning.
Yeah.
Is that a verb, humaning?
It is now.
And the other thing for me, I think, is I had a kid who got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes about 3 years ago. And learning to walk with a child through chronic illness has been overwhelming and too much and too hard all the same time, you know? But God's grace is so good, and it's enough for the day. It's not enough, you know, it's like He gives you that allotment for that moment.
Yeah.
And so it's been so good to be able to have that and to get through every moment. Because for me, it's like the physical part of her illness is totally doable. Yeah. It's like, okay, we got this. The mental, emotional battle for her, being 9 when she got diagnosed, was like she remembered what it was like. You know, it wasn't like she was so little that she was like, don't really remember life before diabetes. She remembered being able to do whatever she wanted and not think about food or not think about blood sugar. It's been like so much struggling with depression and, you know, just self-pity and trying to learn the balance of how do I help a kid feel like I have compassion for them and feel heard. Where's the balance of that versus, okay, now that's enough. You need to stop feeling sorry for yourself.
Right.
Right. I mean, like, this is really hard because you want them to know, like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Your life is hard. And what you're having to go through is way harder than, like, most people ever have to go through.
Right.
But also, you're going to have to move past this and, like, get rid of self-pity, because if you live in self-pity, you and everyone around you is going to be unhappy. You know, that has been probably one of the biggest challenges
and having to walk through that with her.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to get yourself out of that self-pity? Like, have you learned that has helped you be able to teach her how to get through it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I think self-pity and also just self-hatred in general. Like, going back to the giving yourself grace, that was something, you know, I noticed that in my mind, what I was thinking about was constantly how stupid I was, or how I can't believe I did that wrong, or I can't believe I did this, I can't believe, you know, just all these different thoughts. Whereas in other people, in my relationship with other people, I was so gracious. You know, I was like, oh, it's okay, you don't need to worry about that, it's no problem. But yet if I did something that was even remotely a mistake, I was just brutal on myself. And so I think I've just discovered that it's not a healthy behavior for me, just for myself, but also I'm modeling for my kids. You know, and they hear the comments I make, they can see how I'm thinking about myself. You know, it's pretty apparent when, you know, when you're frustrated with yourself, and your kids pick up on things like really well.
I feel like they model those negative things even better.
I know, right? They get that better.
I'm like, oh,
don't pick up on that.
That's what I have been doing. I look like that.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, I remember when they were little, one time they were at Barnes & Noble with me, and it was like one of the worst kid moments ever. And I got back in the car and I just screamed at them, and I was just like, you guys, you know, and then I just remember thinking, okay, that's it, I'm never doing that again. And I didn't, but it's hard not to beat yourself up and constantly criticize yourself and be really hateful towards yourself.
I think that's for me over the last year especially. It's been like having to train myself to take every thought captive.
That is so important.
A negative thought comes in, it's like, no, like we can't go there. I can't dwell on that. Like there's no room for that in my life. And so trying to learn through that. I feel like a lot of my learning now is like, I've got to teach these kids to overcome this. And if I'm going through this right now, like how can I help them in their childhood, and how are they going to grow up to be?
Like we talk with our kids a lot about agreements that you make. Like a thought comes into your head that's negative, and you have a choice of what you can do with it. Like you're talking about taking every thought captive. It's like you have a choice with every thought. You know, like the thought comes, well, you're so stupid. And you can say, yeah, I know. Or you can be like, no, that's not true. I have the mind of Christ. Or, you know, like, no, that's not true. I'm intelligent, or whatever it is, you know, like whatever it is you can overcome that thought with. But when you agree with it, it's like you empower it. And then suddenly there you are, like, you know, struggling under it more, and you've given it more power. The part where you're getting out of it is so hard, because it's not like an everyday battle. It's like an every second battle where you're constantly going, okay, what am I thinking right now? Like being super aware of your thoughts, super aware of how you're treating yourself, and just constantly giving yourself more grace and breaking those agreements and going, no, I'm not going to agree with that, because it's crazy when you start doing it, how much you realize how mean you are to yourself.
That's so true. And I feel like it just takes practice. Like if you're constantly feeding yourself negative thoughts and everything, it just it's so easy to just keep going in that direction. But then having to be aware and thinking about what you're thinking about. And just that practice, like catch it once and then just start trying to catch it more and more often is how to get out of it. Because I feel like if you're so deep in it, it feels like it's going to be impossible to try to dig your way out. But you have to, and just take it one thought at a time.
And also it's just like the encouragement would be, it does get easier. Like it's like when you're really entrenched in it, it feels like I will never overcome this. This is going to be forever, and it's so hard. But then once you start moving past it, you start realizing, oh man, I remember back when this was really a struggle. And now I don't feel like I struggle with that as much. So it does get easier. That's like the big encouragement.
I think it gets easier faster than you would expect as well. Like it feels, because in the darkness, it feels like it's going to be forever. But then once you start getting the light, it starts getting easier and easier. And I think it goes a little bit faster than you would expect. Thank you so much for hanging out and talking about this. This is a joy. I'm excited about this, about changing the topics and getting to talk to moms and just encourage each other, because I feel like
so needed.
It is. I feel like it's so easy, especially in social media today. Like we can sit in our own house and we can look at what we think everybody else's life is like, and we forget that we all struggle the same. And those struggles are real, but we also need to focus on the positive, and we need to encourage each other in this, and we need to reclaim motherhood. Because it's so worth it, and we have lives that we're molding right now. They're going to be beautiful lives in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. So fun.
She's done. Bye, Olivia. Bye. Say hi, you got your drink, now you're happy. John over there taking care of the other kids. He's the video babysitter.